So on that fateful day, um, about a month or so ago, I was out there, and first time I spoke of St. Agnes, walked through my apartment and walked up my stairs. It was spontaneous, but I always have a script in my mind, so nothing's ever purely spontaneous. But anyway, these are the pile of bottles, some of them, that I'd had since then, in what is now this empty recycling bucket, which I've now filled with water so I can wash them tomorrow because I've been trying to clean up my life. This is going to be a collage of thoughts. This is what I think is a cat skull, but it might not be. It might be a possum or a badger. I don't know enough about animals. But a guy at work knew I was into like art and knew I was into like kind of collagey weird shit. And he found this beneath one of the old houses we were working on. And well, I posted a video recently where at the end of it there was a crow. It was on that job. I have more footage from that job that I'm going to put in another video at some point, I believe. But and to me it's a little bit of a reminder, and I mentioned it before, of my cat, who was old, but I felt like could have lived longer if I didn't neglect him or her. I still don't know if it was a boy or a girl. Could have been a hermaphrodite cat. It had a head like a woman, but it acted like a man. Maybe it was a lesbian cat. But had him for years too. Lucky. But it was when I was going through one of the top 5 crises of my life, and the best I could do was throw him a cat of tuna fish. You know, he had fleas, I had fleas. It was bad. It was a bad state. But what I was going through, and what you might be going through or have gone through or will go through, might be similar. You know, John the Baptist, supposedly symbolically heralded in Renaissance paintings. Motherfucker lived a tough life, and then he got decapitated. Never mind Jesus, who we always say this, that about, but Jesus wept. One. Jesus cried, "Why, God, have you forsaken me?" God crying to God. And he was killed. Murdered. And he complied. That's tough. But anyway, trying to use this to remind myself not to neglect myself. And I'm being prosaic once again about it, talking about it without the tears that I shed, but I've shed tears and they're not done yet. And maybe someday you'll see me weep. But I refuse to do it fake, especially to an audience, even if the audience is only one. And just as I refuse to save myself without leaving a trail, this is a crumb on the trail. It will reach me in some way, and that might be its only purpose. And if it reaches you, I hope it reaches you with the right purpose, and not to glamorize death, but looking at where we are and looking at where we're going, where we could go, So I've cleaned up some here in my house. I've cleaned up some. Well, see, that's the thing with my body. I've not cleaned up enough. Though I'm trying to clean up my space so that I have provisions for the future, so to speak. This is some ground ivy, which is part of the mint family, which when you eat it or crush it and smell it, smells a little bit like cat pee, but it is part of the mint family. Its roots are square. Its roots have 4 sides, which is an interesting mathematical connection, square roots. Mint has square roots. But ground ivy is part of the mint family and tastes nothing like mint. Harriet Tubman's slave name was Mint, at least in the movie. Don't disregard the untruths in movies, because if they're not true historically, they're symbolically true. Because thousands of great minds, we are all great minds, work on movies. And this is one I got from a different job. Both of these were from jobs I was at. My landlord mowed down the ones that were at my house recently. They'll grow back, as will the wild carrots that were recently mowed down. And yeah, this one's taken off. It's already grown twice in size. Some of it will die, but it's going to do well. And I'm going to grow these for the winter. And there's a few more ingredients I have to get for one of the next projects I want to do. And when I say next, I got like 40 of them. I have like 104 videos on my phone, which I've yet to post, but I'll get there. I'll get there. And I forgot, let's see, what did I forget? I've already forgotten so much. But I'll get there. So yeah, this is, well, I talked about this object in a previous post, and one of the things I neglected to mention, I talked about how I binge watched Chappie over a weekend when I started it, and then I watched it every night. When I came home for the remainder of the week, and on the next weekend, I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie from several years back, a few times over while I finished it. So that's the chronology of that. Well, I made this one. I can't remember what movie I was watching when I made the wooden one, but it'll be alright. But this one I watched while making The Usual Suspect, or while watching The Usual Suspect movie. We'll get to that. And I forgot to mention also that my recent quote-unquote productivity was derived from The Wizard of Oz, and I made a reference to that in a previous video about the symbology in The Wizard of Oz, and I thought it needed more So this page, it needed more breaking down. So this page and this page start to break it down so I can make a, this is like my rough draft so that I can make a storyboard so I can create the movie I want to make about that. Oh yeah, because I'm still drinking, still smoking. Haven't puffed for a while. Haven't puffed the good or the like the fake weed or the real weed for a while, so that's a good thing. I did eat a couple fake hot dogs yesterday, and I might later tonight. I'm not sure yet. But we'll bring up the good stuff. Watermelon ferment that I've had going for a day now, and another berry ferment that I've had going, well, for about a week. But I've drank a lot, and then I put more water in, then I put more berries in, and drank some, and put more water in. But this one's probably about at the end of its life. And because it's been warm lately, and because I have so many fruit flies, which quote unquote help with the process, it's already ready. When you soak fruits in water, once they rise to the top, you know, shit's happening. And it gets sour. It gets sour and effervescent, sanguine, hand taste. But I'll bring these with me as a reminder for the good that I'm trying to do. And I think it was Liao Tzu who said he wouldn't eat a food without its young. And I might have that term wrong. And I believe that the way it's spelled in English is like how Carl Jung is spelled. And that's an interesting connection, that Carl Jung got so much of his inspiration from the East. And Jung is also a reference to, I believe, types of ferment of foods, which has to do with both aerobic and anaerobic predigestion of foods that we eat, which has to do with leavened and unleavened bread or berries or beer. Beer-red. Another thing is I want to get to, as I've mentioned before, you know, Moses came down the mountain saying no more golden calves, no more worshiping the calf, the golden calf, no more eating veal, no more working for the husbandry of butchering. So, can't kill what's already dead. I'm distressed. I like my new chair, but I'm distressed about the leather seat. And even though papal bulls may not be written on bullhide anymore, the fact that they're even called papal bulls. I mean, think about that. Moses came down off the mountain with words carved in stone to say, stop worshiping the calf. Of course, he was raised in Egypt and was raised in all of the ways of Egypt, who were masters of brewing lightly alcoholic beers, where alcohol was not the intent, but a very small byproduct of the process of releasing nutrients to cleanse the body. something I want to do, something I'm trying to do. But I'm a drunk. But being a drunk or alleviating, I don't want to make excuses for myself, but there's a reason why so many, like, quote unquote artistic people are drunks. Or heroin addicts, or potheads, or this or that, or whatever. It's because we're empathic. You're empathic. Why do you do shit? You do shit because when you don't, you feel, ugh. Yes, part of that is the DTs. Part of that is the withdrawal. Yes, part of it. The other part of it is because you're receiving. What are you receiving? You know you're receiving. You know you're getting shit from on high. You know you're getting shit from all around you. You know it. And the reason we're getting that, it's hard for me to talk about this without being too severe or too lighthearted. If you're too severe, you forget the gift. And if you're too lighthearted, you forget the atrocity of what's happening to not only people to people. One of the reasons I'm making this video today is because of the whole George Floyd thing that's happening, and that actually I've been completely, if it weren't for people talking about it at work, I wouldn't know about it at all. I only checked it out on YouTube this morning. My feed doesn't get anything about it because my feed's so far off in other directions on YouTube, which is my main source, pretty much my only source of information. And it's awful what happens to black people in America, as far as the police go and all that kind of thing, and like the history of it. And I feel a little bit bad about one of the posts I made recently where I said none of the founding fathers had slaves, which sounds awful until you understand how far back and how far below the Underground Railroad goes. Did some of them have slaves? Probably. For real. But some of them didn't. Some of them pretended to have slaves, and the slaves that they pretended to have were masters, ancient masters. And that's the truth. Who came here because this was the only place left. If healing is going to happen, it's going to happen here. And it's going to happen with you. It's not going to come from the government. It's going to come from us. Moses came down from the mountain, having learned everything from Egypt. He was the lawgiver. Stop worshiping the golden calf, the brisket, the kethem, the ket ham, the gold. Where is gold? Monatomic gold is mostly found in blue fruits, blueberries. I got a whole nother thing to do on that. But the leather. Why did Jesus come? Why did Jesus come? He died for my sins. If you're into Jesus, this is really important. And I barely have any understanding of this shit, but I got to the point from other sources. But it's so funny how, like, the main point of the story, everyone loses in the most popular religion in the world. Jesus died for our sins so we wouldn't have to sacrifice animals to God on religious occasions. What did you eat last Easter? Did you eat an Easter ham? Hard-boiled eggs? Cadbury bunny? He died so that the Jews wouldn't have to sacrifice animals to God anymore. To God, to goat, to the gut. Anyway, that's why I stopped wearing a belt and started wearing suspenders. I also wear a rope sometimes. Now, I haven't found a good fabric belt yet because all of them have at least a little bit of leather on them that I've looked at in the store. We shouldn't even call them papables anymore. Anybody who's into conspiracy theories or this or that or whatever, never mind people who actually know the law, right? Like the Constitution derives its authority from the Magna Carta. Where's that derive its authority? Where's that derive its authority? I mean, I don't really know, but it seems as all goes back to the papacy, city-states, the Vatican as a city-state, the city of London as a city-state, Washington, D.C. as a city-state, so on. So that comes back into the whole idea of the Illuminati. Are there people involved in this? Yes, and people call it the Bavarian Illuminati and so on. It's all just a front on top of a front on top of a front on top of a front. But there are people who actually are involved in these things. And even them we have to pray for. When the truth of the truth comes out, and those who have vied for like eliminating populations, doing all these pretty nefarious type of things, saving themselves, underground bunkers, all that shit. When it really comes down, when Gandalf bursts into the middle of this magic show, these people are going to take it hard, man. The people on the wrong side of things who have been working for God's bad dream, which is it can go so far. The furthest way it can go is to destroy everything. If the entire cosmos is not destroyed, those who work for God's bad dream and self-preservation, unfortunately, will fail. Will many of us die? Yes. But it's to save everything, not to save yourself. And I don't mean that in like some kind of suicidal way, but that goes back to this whole George Floyd thing. People were taking videos. You have one cop on one dude's neck. I don't know, I haven't even seen the video. I just barely heard about this, but 3 people, and granted, this was a militaristic cop, all this shit, but 3 people could have thrown down their phones and tackled that motherfucker. I'm a coward, but I'd like to think, I want to think I would have done that. I didn't. I wasn't there. I can't judge anybody who was. So we protest, talk about rubber bullets, this or that. Oh, the government did this. Yeah, the government did it. The government did that. The government killed it. The government killed Jesus. The government killed Ben-Hur. The government killed Martin Luther King Jr. The government killed JFK. I mean, go on and on. A government killed Abraham Lincoln. I mean, They didn't kill Harriet Tubman, though. What can you do when God's on your side and you say, fuck it, I'm going to risk my life? But it doesn't have to be crazy shit. It's just doing the right thing. And for me, making this stupid video somehow relates to doing the right thing over Jesus came, so no more this. So stop eating your fucking pot roast on Easter. Your Christmas ham or turkey or pot roast or whatever. That is like the main moral of the story. Never mind who the Jews really were. Man, all these stories came from way the fuck back. Kind of pretty obvious where they came from. Or at least you can trace that trail backwards. But it's always been about stop eating meat. They don't come right out and say it, because you never would have bought the book if they came right out and said it. But they put it the way they put it. They, long livers, man. I don't just mean long livers. I mean long livers. They're here. They're trying to get us to use our free will instead of just pounding us the fuck down like this Illuminati shit. Why isn't there an eye at the top of the Illuminati? This is a big one. I hope you can see this. Man, I hope you saw all that. Why isn't there an eye at the top of the pyramid? Right? So here we have a pyramid, but there's no, anybody who studies this stuff knows that the top of the pyramid's gone, right? Why is there no top at the pyramid? Why is there no capstone yet? And a lot of people associate the Illuminati with Luciferianism and Satanism. Well, first of all, if we take a pyramid, four-sided triangles, four triangles with a square at the bottom. Got to get this just right here. The light's not right. How am I gonna do this? Bear with me. Well, if you look at the shadow, I'll do a better one at another time. But if you look at the shadow, there you have a pentagram. There you have a star. Flip it upside down. There you have an upside down pentagram. You have a couple because I got a couple lights on my light. And it's a little out of focus, but there's an upside down pentagram, but it's just the shadow of a pyramid with a cross section, the root 2 cross section. So it looks like a square with two root 2 crosses, Coptic cross. You get the shadow, and there's the upside down star. the pentagram. Satan! But why is there no top? Why is there no capstone? Because the time's not complete. Does a pyramid even exist? They're all over the world. But does a pyramid exist? Or, you see, this blue object fits in here. See, this blue pyramid fits in here. It's not perfect because of the way I made it, because it's the same object trying to fit into the same object, but the pyramid goes in there around a bunch of tetrahedron. I think that might relate back to Leibniz and the monad, and my understanding is that in his published work he said that there was a windowless monad, in which case, if this were the monad, there would be a pyramid. But my understanding is that he wrote that there was, that in his secret writings, that the monads were windowed, which would mean there are no such things as pyramids. Pyramids are the empty spaces around which tetrahedron in 3 dimensions arrange themselves. This object is this object. Is the Star of David object, which I mentioned the other day, which I mentioned before. And the pyramid's just half of an octahedron. Do octahedrons exist, or are they the vacuity between tetrahedron? A very valid question, especially considering the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill is clearly not an Egyptian pyramid. Not to disparage Egypt. Where did these things even come from in the first place? Which also comes back to the whole idea of Lucifer. The Antichrist. Who's Lucifer in America? Statue of Liberty. The light bearer. Where does the Statue of Liberty look to? France. Where there's the other Statue of Liberty. What's Antichrist? A-N-T-I. The opposite of Christ. What's that in French? A-N-T-E. Antichrist. What's anti in English? Before. Like the antebellum. Before the war. Before Christ. John the Baptist. I keep saying this, I didn't want to do this. What I really want to do is make my very succinct, I want to describe how the objects I just described in the drawing I drew before is encoded in The Wizard of Oz. And I want to lay it out, boom, 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 and I'm going to. But decoding things, like there's a moral to the story. And so trying to get to the moral, like that's the thing about Aesop that I've been talking about, like Aesop's fables, how clear they are. You know, I don't remember the name or how it goes. That And it's actually kind of hard to find Aesop's Fables online. But, like, because there's just so much shit. Too much information. But, like, The Mouse and the Lion. Which goes back to that song I made before that has to do with the island of the Skog and Mice by Stephen Kellogg. But yeah, the hare and the tortoise. Hare, Harry. Hairy women, Harriet. Hare Krishna. Krishna Christ. Vegetarians. Vegans. And I'm trying to find a way to prove mathematically, because I've seen it in a variety of ways, but then about a month ago I saw it, and it was literally an object right over there in plain sight, a mathematical object that was there for a few days, superimposed on my mind's eye while I was working out this equation, which it is, like, how can it be this way? It's not right, blah blah blah. And then it just came and it pounded me, and I moaned. It sounded like I was having sex. All night long. But it was like trying to survive. It's overwhelming. Like I said, I don't want to share this, but if I don't say it now, when will I say it? And if it's not me, then who will? I've heard things. I've never heard it put this way. This is my spin. Whoever they are, they want to reach everybody. But whenever you're trying to reach everybody, you try to reach one. You hope to reach yourself. But it's more important, if I'm not the one who reaches everybody, then my life doesn't matter. My life matters if I can reach the one who reaches everybody. And if I can't reach the one who reaches everybody, I reach the one who reaches the one who reaches the one who reaches the one who reaches everybody. And if I don't reach anybody, then my psychic input still reaches and will condense upon the one who reaches the one who reaches the one who reaches the one who reaches everybody. Because people talk about there's so much abundance, and there is. But like the first, the 12 steps, I'm on the negative second step. And I'm fucking glad to be there. My feet are buried up to here. And I'm glad to be there. But if we don't all get up there, the better. If we don't all get up there, there's nowhere to go to. And isn't it curious, just as we live in America and no one knows shit about America Vespucci, that there's all these pyramids around the world, everybody's talking about pyramids. How many tetrahedral pyramids are there? I haven't looked it up yet, but I'm gonna. I think there's probably a few. But in architecture, there's a stunning lack of the most basic geometric shape in 3 dimensions, which is, kind of where we live our lives, 3+. The most basic object in existence Everybody's talking about phi, Fibonacci, dodecahedron. Just the stunning silence. Over what could be considered the letter A. I mean, just the first thing, the number one. 4 points. With the fifth point in the middle, which comes back to the whole fiveness. I'm going to get more into it at another time. I want to lay it out. So much comes up on the way, and it's important for me because I do. It's this weird thing, and it's very megalomaniacal, messianic complex type thing, which isn't necessarily bad, because we're all supposed to become something grand and great. To think that you're the only one is a mistake. But to think that you're the one of the ones, of one, that's a good thing. It's just blowing it out of proportion, which I do. I'm guilty. But I feel that I know I have at least the potential. I'm on a path, and I'm being led, I'm being pushed, I'm being pulled. I mean, I couldn't hide on the dark side of the moon in an underground bunker. But I feel like I might get somewhere crucial. I might. You might. For me, it's important to show what a disastrous wreck I am. And I am. But it's important for me to show that because the masters in the past couldn't show that because they had to focus their artistic endeavors on different media than what we have now. If it takes me 30 years, I can't believe I'll live that long. But I've already got a track record of 10 years. If I can live another 10 years and build on whatever's building inside of me, maybe I'll get somewhere that can kind of break through. You know, the masters of the past, they had to make frescoes. They had to make different types of art and leave it around the world, the nomads, who aren't what we think of when we think of nomads. There were different types of nomads, but the nomad of nomads are the maestros of masters, are above and beyond the Illuminati. And they've been laying shit around the world so that we could crack the code. And the reason why they're not just coming to the fore right now is because they know you can't just tell someone the truth. You have to experience it. I've been told that over and over and over again. If truth is going to be built on truth instead of a false truth built on lies, or digging through lies to get to the truth, we all have to get there incrementally, but beyond threshold and threshold. So there's this incremental growth, and then incremental growth, and we all have to get there. And it's up to us to do the work. It's up to me to do the work. And unfortunately, I do a little, if I'm doing work on this, I fail at that. If I'm working on my body, I don't make videos. And it's not all about making videos, it's just like I said. If I get somewhere important or crucial or somewhere that means something, it's really, 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 really important to show what a disastrous human being I am. Because I have that ability. I have that ability that the masters didn't have. And they're busy right now because they're trying to save the fucking world. And it would be disingenuous of them to present themselves as Rex, even though they're masters at that too. But you can't fake, to some degree, you can't fake my particular brand of stupid. So it's up to me to be that while this beauty tries like hell to burst through. They say the road to hell is paved in good intentions, and this is part of sayings and picking apart sayings. It's just like Plato's Republic. Is supposed, the story in the schools is, oh, well, it shows you how you can take someone who doesn't know anything and how through rational arguments you can raise them up to understand. That is not the purpose of Plato's Republic. Plato's Republic is a test. At the end of it, if you're wise, you're supposed to say, horseshit, to a degree. There's truth along the way. But at the end of it, you're supposed to come up with a very different conclusion than the one that is taught in the textbooks. It's a test. It's a test where you just say, no! Yet, that is the world that has been built. And there's a lot of people who are going to be sorry when the truth of truths emerges from beneath the surface. And I hate to use the word emerge, but people are familiar with that word. More correctly, when it emits. The biggest thing we have to do is stop killing animals. What we call animals. That's the number one. Absolute number one. Immediately. Yesterday. I heard it was going to happen in 2045. That was just one of those things that stuck. I can't believe I'm going to live that long, but maybe. And then people talk about like size of the brain and all this kind of thing. I'm not even sure if I'm still going. Let's see. Yep, still going. People talk about like the size of the brain, but we know that the whole brain power comes from neural networks. And people have heard about all the different, enlightening things and all this kind of thing. So we think the size of the brain has something to do with how smart we are. But that also depends on whether we're awake and we're asleep, and how much more we are if we're awake. I'm not awake. But I've come to know from my asleep state the power of the awake. And I've survived those revelations or those demonstrations or those proofs, and it's humbling, but it's also degrading, demoralizing. It's difficult. Being in the presence of those who are enlightened. Never mind those endarkened. But anyway, if you're seeking, you're not enlightened. You're awake to an extent, good for you. I mean, if you're watching this video and you're getting at it, if you're reading what I'm saying, I mean, we're on a wavelength. You know what I'm saying. So am I just still preaching to the choir? Maybe if anyone besides me is watching this, maybe it can at least be some type of encouragement. Like, yes, there's someone else out there. If you see what I see and you see what quote unquote they do, the they and the they of theys, if you can see both of those things, because I don't see anyone like me. I'm a monkey in the middle. There's the there's the they of theys, and then there's the asleep, completely asleep. I'm not completely asleep. I'm between the complete. There's the completely asleep and the they. I'm between them, and then there's the they of they. I guess on the other side of the sleep would be the lost. I refuse at this point to believe in the lost, but there might be some. But I'm between the asleep and the they, somewhere, closer to the asleep. But I don't see people like me. I see they impersonating people like me, but I don't see people like me. So maybe if you're someone like me, maybe at the least I can do is offer you some encouragement that there's someone else out there. And that maybe, this is the first time in history where you didn't either have to be a bookworm at the library. This is the first time where oral tradition can awaken people on a mass scale. You don't have to join this cult or that cult or this society or that society or this church or that church. You don't have to join a structure and get a badge and that's what this is all about. And that's what the they of days are working for. Under God, man. Under the divine principle. Not even divine, unified principle, whatever. Under the truth. Is magic real? Fucking ain't right, it's real. Is God real? Fucking ain't right, God's real. Is the devil real? Yes, to an extent. And all these things I don't understand perfectly. The Greeks already had it broken down into these really amazing categories, whether it's, the difference between magic and sorcery. Like magic is different than sorcery, which is different than the occult, and so on. Like they're different things, but they all tap on something unseen in different ways. But ultimately, if everything doesn't line up, there's all different ways to see beyond the pale, to see beyond the veil, to see beyond the pale. There's all different ways to do that. But if it doesn't line up with the center of centers, and there is a center of centers, if it doesn't line up with that, it's off, and it's off. It's a hemorrhage. I have hemorrhages in my gut and elsewhere. Now that hemorrhage is a relief. It's relieving some other bad thing I'm doing to myself. But if that hemorrhage mistakes itself for the truth, there's no way out. That hemorrhage cannot reform my body into it and become whole. That's the dark magic. That's the Illuminati. That's not the Robert Langdon Illuminati, but the other ones. That hemorrhage can't be healed. It's like relativism. Maybe even like quantum, definitely like string theory. those are hemorrhages. They're balloons in the balloon that will only burst the whole body. So we also don't want to castigate those who have made the wrong choices, because you need that piece of you. You just need to bring it back to the body and heal it. All these hemorrhages we need to bring back to the body to heal it. So we have all these philosophies, all these different mathematics, like we're trying to come up with a unified theory of physics. We're trying to come up with the unified theory of mathematics. I've heard in like the Langlands project. They're the same project. A unified theory of religion, a unified theory of health. Though all of these things are dynamic in an evolutionary teleological system that's moving to the future. So, what's coming, global warming, all this kind of thing, we forget we're part of the natural evolutionary system. And what could have the dinosaurs done to have saved themselves? I think that's a good place to stop. Also, the galactic, platonic, great year of the sun revolving around the center of the galaxy. One human life, 1 degree. We need to prepare ourselves for something that's galactic and so much bigger than all the racism and the global warming and all that shit. Because what's coming is so much bigger. And if we don't get it right, it could be fucking awesome. And if we get it wrong, it's going to be like it was, 10, 12,000 years ago. Crash, bang, bop, boom, Gilgamesh, Noah's Ark. Everybody fucked. And we'll have to start all over again. Then another 9,000 years from now, we'll have to emerge from the Dark Ages again. Or we can spiral up instead of going around. We can, we're going like this, and we have the opportunity to go like this. It's the whole eternal recurrence. It's not eternal recurrence. It's eternal recurrence if we keep going like this. Zip, 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 zip. But if we get it right, we go up. Bigger circle at a higher level so we can go up and down. It's debatable if not more is found down. Which brings, to one thing, I guess maybe I'll wrap it up on this. If our neural networks were more complete, we know we have neurons through our whole body, through our gut. Is an enlightened mouse more smart? Is a mouse, is a dog, is a cat, is a cow, is a pig, with all their neurons in the brain, instead of like thinking like this and thinking with this nerve center and with this language and this language, lighting up all the parts of the brain. If a dog, with all of its parts of the brain lit up at the same time, how much more, mathematically, the neurons, the exponentiality, like, that dog would be so much more smart than me, probably you. I know enlightened people see my shit, so I'm thinking if this goes to anybody else. You know, if you want to blow your mind, you hear all this shit about like people, great mathematicians, like Gödel, who was obsessed with the Leibniz conspiracy, or with Georg Cantor, obsessed with the Shakespeare conspiracy. I'm beyond that shit. Not really. We'll get to it. But only through the luck of the internet and the information at my fingers. You know, if you're into conspiracies, you're in good company. Yeah, fuck it, that's it.